traditionally on day 2 of our Sibos TV coverage, we always check in with our friends in the press for our What the Papers Say segment. So joining us to do that are 3 very familiar friends. Let me introduce you to them. First of all, we've got Chris Hall. He is the news editor at Sibos Issues. Heather McKinsey is next to him. She is the editor of the Daily News at Sibos. And David Bannister is the editor at Banking Technology. Guys, nice to see you as always. Was it an early night, or how late was it to put the papers to bed?
It went pretty well yesterday, actually. So fingers crossed for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fine.
Yep.
It wasn't an
Always.
early night, I'm afraid. No.
It wasn't an early night.
Paper
Nothing to do with the papers, but maybe something else. Okay, okay.
Another story.
Let's start with, as we always do, with what caught your attention yesterday. And I know, Chris, you've all brought along your papers. I'm going to hold, first of all, Chris's one, which is Sibos Issues. And the first story, front page, actually, Chris, you're talking about, and we actually had Samir Asaf, the CEO of Global Banking and Markets for HSBC, making some comments to us. Tell me what grabbed your attention with him.
Well, I think it was interesting that, I think he was reflecting what's on a lot of people's minds, which is that banks need to really kind of allocate their resources appropriately. They need to kind of devote a lot of attention on serving customers, supporting growth, and creating revenue streams for themselves. And for those kind of functions that they've been concentrating on, and those kind of regulatory changes they've been concentrating on for the last 5 years, how can they work together more effectively to kind of minimise the cost of that, but do what governments and regulators want, but maybe kind of socialise that a little bit and work more closely together. He mentioned KYC, saying that there's no kind of commercial advantage for banks in kind of competing in that area. So why don't we work together? And that really does echo a lot of what I've heard throughout the year for the the magazine I edit throughout the year, the trade magazine focused on securities trading. A lot of brokers saying, well, there's areas where we ought to start collaborating, start competing. A related area to KYC is simply kind of market surveillance. All securities market firms need to kind of improve on their surveillance. There's a lot more reporting. There's a lot more onus on them to kind of pick up errant trades. So should they kind of take the kind of utility approach? Yeah,
we've got actually a clip from Samir Asaf, who was speaking at the opening plenary. Let's have a little listen in.
We're used to competing, and that's very good. We should continue to compete. But the crisis taught us that we have to work together as well, because while we are competitors, we are also clients. We are each other clients. And we will achieve so much more together than we can apart.
Samir Asaf there speaking at the opening plenary, obviously CEO of Global Banking Markets for HSBC. And of course, he was, as you said, making a reference to maybe data reference and also KYC. You want to come back on some of those things that we've heard so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think Chris is right that during the rest of the year, when we're doing our normal magazines, this collaboration conversation has come up. It's come up at previous Siboses. But what was interesting was someone as senior as an HSBC exec at that level, and I was lucky enough to talk to Gottfried Lebrant after his plenary session, and he made that point in an interview we were doing then, which hopefully will be in Sibos Daily News later in the week, or at least some of it. And it was for a long time that was being touted as being for the smaller banks, and the big guys would do their own thing. But it's clear that message has got through at the highest levels now. So I think that's quite a big shift in thinking.
Anything you want to add there?
I think the collaboration concept also came out in a story we ran about Bitcoin, which was during a session at the Inner Tribe space, where Gottfried Lebrant was talking about how he was a bit of a cynic about Bitcoin, but that you should look really to the future of Bitcoin, what its possibilities are, and that also one of the representatives from Bitcoin was talking about the banks sort of trusting Bitcoin more and also possibly collaborating as well. So there's collaboration among banks, but also collaboration with people who might have previously been seen as competitors, and that banks now realise that, you know, they should be collaborating with.
Okay, I want to come back to you, Chris, because we actually had John Wilson from UEdge yesterday, and that speaks, he was making some comments which you also carried in your paper, and this is, just so I can point to my cameraman, the story that we're talking about. And he was saying, you know, it's one thing for us to put all these regulations and measures in place to keep everybody safer, but competitive advantage and the drive for competition and doing better among these OTC houses probably going to be the order of the day, and is, in fact, is it going to make it safer?
Well, I think it was kind of a sense of really kind of telling the rest of the kind of finance community that, you know, risks never really kind of, you know, truly disappear, and a riskless financial market is also a profitless financial market. So we need to be kind of you know, realistic about that. But I think we need to just say that, you know, we are going into a new regulatory environment for derivatives and securities market infrastructures. That's why Sibos has a kind of market infrastructure forum for the first time. But we need to kind of, we can't just say that, you know, because the G20 has spoken and the market has introduced new rules that kind of have central clearing and central reporting of derivatives, that doesn't mean the risk has gone away. The clearing houses in particular are new to kind of clearing a lot of the instruments that they are being forced to clear by the new regulations, and it is a challenge to their risk management practices. So I think John Wilson is saying, you know, let's not think we've solved this. We need to kind of keep an eye on this and keep a balance between, you know, good sound operational and risk management and competitive forces. It's an ongoing challenge.
And then the other big topic that we are going to be discussing on Sibos TV today, and obviously in the conference as well, is cyber and the threat of cyber crime and security, etc. And David, on the front cover of Banking Technology, that's one of the issues that you deal with here, obviously. So let's talk about what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a terrible misjudgment by me, that cover story, because every year with Banking Technology, because there are so many competitive magazines, and, you know, we collaborate, obviously, but I always try and have a non-Sibos related theme on the cover of Banking Technology instead of a picture of Gottfried. And this year I didn't choose so well, because cyberspace seems to be and given recent revelations and stories, it's clearly front and center. It was mentioned a lot yesterday, and the implications of some of the issues that are happening there. And the word geopolitical got used yesterday. So I think the subtitle of that article is, you know, is it beyond the rule of law? And I think there's some real key issues which are probably beyond the scope of the banking industry, quite frankly. So,
and you also talked a lot about standards with me before we were coming on the air, and we were getting you mic'd up. You were talking about standards, and also this is the other story Chris wanted to talk about, which is about treasurers. But let's, first of all, you have something you want to say about someone in standards.
Today is the 10th birthday of the Standards Forum, which started in Atlanta, and there'll be a party with cake, I'm assured, at 5 o'clock on the Standards Forum stand. The discussion we had yesterday, which was to open the future of standards debate we were talking about, and one of the issues we ran into was the jargon that gets used and how technical it is and how it has to move into the market infrastructure debate and the business issues around that. But there was still all this technical jargon, and it just struck me, and I love the Standards Forum people dearly, but I don't think they were helping their own message by having their competition to win a mini iPad is like Geek of the Week competition.
So it should be what? Rock Star of the Week.
Rock star,
yeah. We had some rock stars on the air yesterday, absolutely. We even had a guy playing guitar. Run along to Inner Tribe, and maybe you might grab a few from them. Okay, I want to get to treasurers, this story that you've got here, Chris, in your paper, and tell us a little bit about this.
Well, it's just really a preview of the fact that the corporate forum is starting today. Corporates have been a kind of growing part of Sibos over the last decade or so. I used to be, about a decade ago, I used to be editor of a website called Global Treasury News, and it's just interesting to me to see how this corporate corporate forum will kind of reflect the changes in how corporates are working with their banks to get a kind of greater visibility over their kind of cash and liquidity management. I think the challenges are very similar as they've always been, but I think banks and particularly SWIFT have kind of used kind of technological developments to help corporates solve those problems a little bit more effectively. And also I think in this kind of post-crisis environment, it's just much more essential that people have that visibility of their revenue streams because and responsiveness to changes in those revenue streams because it's a much more uncertain environment now.
Okay, great. Let's hear from Andre Casterman, who actually runs the Corporate Forum. Let's have a listen as to what banks and corporates can expect from this conference.
The Corporate Forum aims at helping banks innovate in treasury and trade. We're going to look at a series of innovations, and the goal is really for banks to hear from their peers how they bring those innovations on the market. And we're moving this year really from the focus on corporate to bank connectivity to a focus on innovations across multiple channels, across multiple industries, and across both the treasury and the trade space. So the Corporate Forum really help banks identify how they can plan ahead their product developments. They will hear from advanced corporates, users, around what they appreciate in the area of payments, cash management, trade finance. And they will hear also from their peers what value propositions are being developed by banks in the area of treasury and trade. So corporates are really here, they are invited by SWIFT and by banks. The ones SWIFT is inviting, are inviting is really for demonstrating the corporate appetite for specific product developments. So in the area of security and mandate management, we're going to hear about corporates using more and more 3SK. We're going to hear about, in the area of supply chain finance, we're going to hear about corporates using the bank payment obligation. So it's really about bringing those corporate users as speakers to explain to banks how to plan their product development, what is important to them.
As Global Head of E-Commerce for HSBC's cash management business, I find the Corporate Forum at Sibos a unique environment where I can work with the corporate treasurers who I serve, work with my colleagues in other banks, and really collaboratively look at the offerings we provide over SWIFT, how they're consumed and how they could be made better working together as a community.
So that's some of the things you can expect at the Corporate Forum at Sibos 2013 here in Dubai. Chris, I want to come back to you. I don't know, David and Heather, if you've seen this, but they're running something on the back page of Sibos Issues where it's here for the cameraman's attention. And they're talking really about this section, little section here at the back. They're asking delegates what have been their reflections on day one. And there's a very interesting take. There's this lovely guy from the Saudi Central Bank, and he was talking about his reflection on day one. Should I read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Tonight, I am looking forward to seeing what my wife has bought in Dubai. So I think everybody fears for that guy, doesn't it? Or ladies who brought their husbands.
Possibly, yeah. I was in Dubai Mall earlier in the week, and it took me several hours to get out of it. So can't get
Okay, great. Well, thanks. Well, our hearts go out to you, Mr. Al Sheikh Abdul Malik. Okay, so I hope for the lady in question, I hope she had a great retail therapy session. That's always good for us. Okay, thanks very much to all of you for joining us.